1. Owen Stanford wasn't a man who did things on a whim. He believed in coincidence and happy accidents. He believed in what he saw, what was in front of him. So when the notion struck him to drive over 200 miles to a place he had never been, he wondered if maybe madness wasn't far off. His grandpa talked of Ridley Mountain at one time or another. The man was always spinning tales from his truck driving days. Owen remembered Pap saying something about how Ridley Mountain was like a lusty woman, beautiful on the outside, ugly on the inside. You may want to spend a night with her, but if you stayed too long, you grew roots that entangled with hers, and before you knew it, you were stuck. Now, Owen didn't know a lusty woman from a mountain, but he understood roots, and his grew deeper every day, tethering him to the only place he ever called home. Life crept up on him like moss growing on a rock, and before he knew it, he was 50 years old, living in the house his grandparents left him after they died, along with a bit of money to keep him going, and an ache that never went away. The decision to leave came suddenly, bordering on impulsive, while standing barefoot on his porch on a damp October morning, smoking his pipe. "I better get going then," was all he said, like he was about to walk to the end of the lane to fetch the mail. No one was around to talk sense to him or stop him from making the trip, but as he filled a thermos with coffee and stuffed a bag full of sandwiches, Owen thought of practical matters. Pack enough socks and underwear to last a few days longer than needed, carry extra pocket change, always have a tank full of gas, and be sure to have the toolbox to fix the truck in case it broke down, which it would. The distributor cap had been going bad for some time, but since he never went anywhere farther than the hardware store or the scrapyard, he never worried about fixing it. If the truck wouldn't start, just wait a bit. That was his motto, and at home, that was fine. He could always catch a ride from a friend, or walk, or just wait until the sun came out. Damp mornings like that morning were the worst, but after a few minutes of struggle, the engine growled and sputtered to life. Owen drove off without looking back. The road to Ridley Mountain cut through the hillside like a snake slithering through the tall, lush grass of summer. Owen's beat-up '73 Chevy lime green pickup truck clung to the roads as he drove through isolated backcountry. He had no idea where he was going. He didn't own a GPS, but even the road atlas laying in the passenger seat didn't have a clue where he was going. He didn't know why he was even going there, but his heart beat a little faster, and the sun shone a little brighter that morning. It might have been nerves, maybe something sort of like excitement, or something like the opposite of inertia. Even he wasn't quite sure. After hours of driving, Owen came to a sliver of civilization tucked in the shadow of the mountains. A green road sign with white block lettering read, "Welcome to Ballard, population 373, elevation 2,100 feet." He came to a four-way stop at the crossroads in what he assumed was the main part of town. To the right of him, a string of tired-looking houses, painted in sleepy earth tones, splattered the hillside. Chipped bird baths toppled to the ground, stone angels with broken wings still watching over gardens overgrown with weeds, and rusting swing sets littered the yards. To the left of him, a small house with a sign out front that read, City Hall, stood diminutively at the corner of No and Where. Through the intersection was a gas station and a rather newish-looking diner which seemed out of place in the run-down community. With the needle almost on empty, and with steep hills looming out in front of him, Owen could hear Pap's voice in his head. Always have a full tank of gas because you just never know what could happen. He couldn't chance running out of gas in a place like this. As the gas pumped, Owen slipped off to the side of the building and took a leak. Steam rose up as a stream of piss hit the cold ground, forming a puddle at his feet, droplets of urine soaking into the scuffed leather of his steel-toed boots. He gave a final shake, zipped up, and wiped his hands on his pants. He scanned the hills in front of him. A mist shrouded the mountaintop like one of his grandma's lace doilies draped over a table at a funeral dinner. Solemn, yet delicately beautiful. Owen pulled his collar up and shuddered a chill away as he walked back to the truck. The gravel crunching under the weight of his footsteps, The click and thump of the gas pump as it finished running, the rustle of his denim coat as his arms moved back and forth when he walked. Even his own breathing suddenly felt rude and obvious. He hunched his shoulders and kept his eyes on the ground, shrinking in front of those mountains, and for a man of his size, that was almost hard to do. He stood in judgment of those hills, small, an intruder, like they knew he was onto them. They held secrets, and their secrets wanted to remain untouched and buried. As a gentle breeze tickled the hairs on his ears, Owen could almost hear the mountains whispering to him. The hush of the wind in the trees implored him to turn around and go back home. You are not welcome here. Trouble carried on the wind, sending a shiver straight through his bones, the sensation so palpable he could taste it. It tasted of decay and rot, of lies and secrets that were passed down through the generations like tradition. Nothing about this road trip made a lick of sense, yet somehow, somewhere deep inside him, he understood what he had to do, why he traveled so long to get to a place he had only heard about but had never been. Owen was bringing justice to Ridley Mountain, and nobody alive was prepared for his arrival.